Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today I just want to talk a little bit about rigging your boat, and I recently received a question from somebody who watched my video on my new 2021 Skeeter FX, and the question was simply, what components on your boat could you not live without? What are one or two things outside of the big items like the Lowrance, and the trolling motors and that type of thing, but like the smaller items that you can install on a boat for relatively cheap. And the question was, what items could I not live without? And really, one of the first things that pops up in my mind is an item that, for whatever reason, kind of has like this controversy between yes or no. It's like people either love it or they hate it. And I can't understand why you would not install this in your boat. Like, I've heard lots of people argue as to why they don't, but yet none of it really justifies why you wouldn't have it. Like, there are reasons, I guess, but they don't outweigh the benefits. And specifically, what I'm talking about is a TH Marine Hotfoot, which is, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's essentially a gas pedal for your boat. So you accelerate by using your foot, as you would in your car. It's no different than driving your car. And what that enables you to do is keep both hands on the wheel, apply, gas to your engine to accelerate with your foot. And that way you're driving with two hands on the wheel, and you can do the, in my case, I've got an Atlas jack plate. So I've got a hydraulic blinker trim for that on my left side of my steering wheel. On the right side, I've got my trim for my engine, the tilt and trim. So, I can control both that with having my hand on the wheel. If I had to have one hand on the throttle and I was driving, I wouldn't be able to use both blinker trims for my jack plate and for the motor. So right off the bat, it doesn't make much sense to me. But realistically, it's like one of the biggest safety items that I think we have in our boats. I mean, we're essentially driving convertibles with no seat belts at insane speeds. I mean, we're going 70 plus mile an hour across the water. If you hit a stump, you hit anything, I mean, it's bad. Like, it's like running, off the highway at 70 miles an hour. It's not a good thing. It's not anything anybody wants to experience. And by having your foot on the steering wheel, you drastically limit the amount of things that could go wrong. If you're driving, you're accelerating with your foot and you have two hands on the wheel. First off, if you hit something, you've got two hands on the wheel, so you might be able to hold it together better than you would with one hand. Because the last thing you want is that wheel spinning out of control, because that'll send the boat into a spin, and that's where people get thrown from the boat. So having that ability to control my speed and keep both hands on the wheel, heck, guys, it's how we're supposed to drive car. 10 and 2 o'clock, same thing with a boat. You're supposed to have both hands on the wheel. So for me, I just, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to have the accelerator, in your foot versus your hand. And, I've done it both ways. My first handful of boats all had, this was almost kind of before a Hotfoot was a thing. I mean, I've done it, and it was not easier to do that. And I'm not just talking about high speeds, it's at all speeds. I mean, here's an example for you. One guy I know that is adamant, I don't want a Hotfoot. I hate them, I can drive just fine. Well, I remember going through the boat line one time with him, where you got to drive through the pontoon boat to get your boat number and do a boat check. And what happens? He hits the pontoon boat because he's, idling through, and he's got one hand on the wheel, trying to accelerate, or control the boat speed with the other hand. And at the same time, they're throwing a little boat float at him with his boat number. So he goes to try to catch it, and he's trying to steer, and he had a little bit too much gas in it. And then next thing you know, he tries to adjust, and he hits the pontoon boat, potentially causing damage to the pontoon boat, the dock, his own boat. All of that would have been avoided had he had a Hotfoot and he could have controlled the speed with his foot. So it's simple little things like that. Docking, I don't know. I'm one of those guys, I guess, that is adamant that the Hotfoot is a part of your boat and should be involved. Like, it should be part of everybody's boat. It should be standard for all boats, unless it's a tiller drive. Like, it should be standard. And, you know, I see it all the time with pleasure boaters and water skiers, and, you know, they don't have the Hotfoots most of the time, and they are way more out of control than the majority of bass fishermen and other, you know, fishing boats, just for whatever reason. I don't think they have as much experience in a lot of instances, and I think those bigger boats are harder to drive with one hand. So my advice to you guys would be, if you are in fact, you know, looking to add something to your boat, or you're in the market for a new boat, make sure it has a Hotfoot. Like, it's a valuable tool to have. It's a safety item. It'll make you a better boater on the water. And, you know, I know guys will be like, well, when I fish big water, I can drive just fine and accelerate and this and that. But I'll tell you what, when you're in 3, 4, 5, 6, 10-foot waves, having the ability to have two hands on the wheel to control the boat and drive the boat and accelerate with your foot is way more efficient than it would be if you had one hand on the wheel, one hand on the accelerator, especially in rough water. You're bouncing around. I see it all the time. Guys are bouncing around and they push that lever down, pull it up, because they can't control the speed nearly as well as they could with their foot. So guys, that's what I got for you. I think it's a valuable tool. Add it in. Leave me a comment if you think I'm crazy. I'd love to hear a reason why. I've heard a lot of top-end professionals tell me why they won't use it, and literally I have not heard one thing that makes a good, legitimate sense. It's usually, well, I'm able to drive the boat just fine. I've never had issues. But you could drive it better if you had a Hotfoot. That's what I got to say. So leave a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I'd love to hear it all. If you agree with me, leave a like. Share this with your fishing buddies. I think it's that important that everyone has a Hotfoot in their boat. It's a huge tool to have. Thanks for watching, guys.